Hey everyone, welcome to a special edition of the Retro Gamers Podcast. A little different scenery for me, Larry here.
And Anthony here.
What's going on, Ant?
Well, there's a little different scenery over here too. As you can see, I've got the sun in the background right here.
Yeah, I see that. You're the celestial entities that you're now having in your apartment is very
Yes.
good.
Well, no, I have personally transcended.
Good. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. It was an arduous process, but I made it.
And I'm actually here at my parents', this being Father's Day. So all you pops out there, happy Father's Day.
Yes, and a happy Father's Day to Butch.
Thank you very much. And, happy Father's Day to your pop and everyone's pop out there. So, all right. So this is our special edition episode. We like doing this every year because even though we've been talking more about new stuff, like when we get to E3, it's like Christmas.
Yeah, it is. I mean, we have. I think it would be a disservice to us, to listeners, and everybody if we don't talk about what is new and upcoming, because I think it would be a shame to deprive people of that information. And gamers are gamers. It's not if you're a retro gamer, that's great, but you always you still kind of want to know what's on the horizon.
And that's what we've been talking about and talking more about lately. So this episode is going to be chock full of new stuff. I know a lot of stuff you've already heard by now, but, to get our reactions, to hear some stuff. And sometimes some new news kind of trickles out a little bit, even after E3 ends. So we're going to kind of get right into it at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So let's start off with Nintendo, who I think of this E3, I think Nintendo had the best presentation as far as like their lineup, their news, in all honesty. I just think overall, if you're going to have a winner, I know I'm jumping ahead already, but I think Nintendo, in my opinion, may have won E3.
Okay. Well, let's go through it all, and then let's decide at the end who the winner is. I think
fair enough.
I think it's unfair to say that right off the bat when we haven't even talked about anything.
Well, the first thing I want to mention is that really very little news for the 3DS coming out of Nintendo from E3. So I don't know if that means they're starting to phase out the 3DS in the fact that the Switch is basically, your handheld and your home console at the same time.
Yeah.
It wouldn't shock me if they did, even though the 3DS is awesome. I think It's got great games on it, I've mentioned before. But, really nothing. As far as I remember, nothing on the 3DS.
Well, I wonder if that's because how they're coming out with that more simplified Switch.
The rumors, nothing official.
Well, there are rumors that they're coming out with like a more simplified version of the Switch, and I wonder if they're looking at that as like once we have that, the 3DS isn't absolutely necessary.
I agree. I think the Switch's overall is going to become it's the hybrid. It's the hybrid. That came out of nowhere.
He just jumped up in my lap. I can't do anything about it.
You may see a little white fur ball over here. That would be Samson if he jumps in the window.
Say hello.
Oh, there he is.
There he is.
Cranky as ever.
Yep.
So, not only is the simplified 3D Switch rumored, the high-powered Switch is rumored, but nothing official from Nintendo. It's been software, and boy, did they announce a lot of stuff. Also, keep in mind, as we go through this, when we hit the systems, a lot of this is going to be multi-platform. So, like, when we get to the last system, it may sound a little, like, light in the video game realm, but because we've mentioned the games already, a lot of multi-platform stuff. But let's talk about first the news as far as, because we mentioned it last week, the new DLC character for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, which I wasn't expecting, but I like this, Banjo-Kazooie.
Yeah, I thought that was a cool little surprise because Banjo-Kazooie, for all intents and purposes, has been rather quiet in terms of a franchise, and a lot of people have been wondering when they were going to really make an impact on next gen. And this is an interesting little maybe tease for a future game. Who knows? Like why they would pull the characters out of the ether.
So. And but I also like the tease like that they did on the Nintendo Direct because they had the silhouette, but then it was the dog and the duck from Duck Hunt, which is pretty funny. And then Banjo-Kazooie jumped in and beat him up. So that's your ultimate fight right there: the dog and the duck from Duck Hunt versus Banjo-Kazooie.
Oh, that would be awesome. They should put the dog and the duck in just out of just because they did that.
Well, no, they're in Super Smash Brothers.
Oh, see, that's how behind I am in Super Smash Brothers. Because to be honest with you, I'm not really. It's not my favorite game. It's just not.
Which is weird because you loved the first one.
I loved the first one, and then after that, it just became kind of like, I don't know if it's just too chaotic or I'm just not. I just don't have the hang of it anymore. But like, I played it for a little while, and I'm like, okay, I think I'm done.
Fair enough. Well, if you want to catch up, Ultimate again has all the characters from every past iteration. So that was cool. So then let's get into some stuff here. One of the big games that they really showed, and which I also just bought the original game for because it's on sale. By the time this drops, I don't think it's going to be on sale anymore. But check, because I picked up the original game for $3. Cadence of Hyrule, which is a game called Crypt of the Necrodancer, which is this rhythm-based tactics game. I want to say a dungeon crawler, but it's a rhythm-based game. But now with this new version, it's The Legend of Zelda in it. And like you move and you fight in rhythm with the music, which is a pretty cool idea. It's very difficult. Now, Cadence of Hyrule is full price, but Crypt of the Necrodancer, the original game it's based on, like I said, is on sale at like 80% off.
Oh, nice.
Speak. So yeah, so $3, picked it up. I started playing it. It's fun. It's hard, but it's definitely fun. But it's cool to see Zelda. Like Nintendo's starting to do this a lot where now they're branching out. They're keeping control of it because we saw what happened with the CDI, but they're really branching out their characters to different games.
Yeah, and I think that's a perfect example of like taking a risk, but a very calculated one with a third party title. So I think and those rhythm based games, they've been around for a while. If you go back to I think the first one that pops in my head is Parappa the Rapper.
Yes.
So yeah, which basically is kind of the same. Oh my god, I love that game. That game was awesome.
I know you do.
And then on Sega Dreamcast, you had Space Channel 5. Remember that one?
That was a fun one.
Yeah, that was a fun one. In fact, there's a new one coming. There's a new Space Channel 5 coming.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, I heard an announcement about that one.
Yeah,
but
news all over the place.
Yeah, there's news everywhere. But yeah, so taking Link and Zelda and all our favorites from that franchise and adding them to a rhythm-based tactics game, it's kind of fun. It's different, and it's a cool little experience. So I'm actually looking forward to playing that. And I didn't realize Crypt of the Necrodancer was Necrodancer. Sorry, Necrodancer. Is on sale, so I got to go pick that up.
Yeah. I think the sale was till the 17th, which actually when this drops, so it may still be on sale. Check it out. Yep. All right. Also, they talked about some more with Super Mario Maker 2. Apparently, it's going to be 2-player co-op online, I believe, is what I heard.
Ooh.
But they did that they've already talked about a lot of Super Mario Maker 2, so it wasn't a lot of news on that one. But but definitely cool that the 2-player co-op, and I like the 2-player, like 2 players at the same time can create a level. So you and a friend can, create a level at the exact same time. I guess double the speed or double the work.
Oh, nice. And then what do you challenge each other with that level?
I guess you could, or just do all the downloads. The Super Mario Maker I have on Wii U, I don't think I created a single level, but I just constantly played all the levels everyone else makes. So that's what's fun about it. All right. Some of the big news, first party Nintendo, was Luigi's Mansion 3.
Yes.
This is where we got the first look of Luigi's Mansion 3. You had the first Luigi's Mansion, right?
I actually did not.
Really? It was a launch title.
Yeah, it was a launch title, but I completely missed it. I don't remember if I got GameCube exactly at launch. I may have gotten it a little later. But the first game I remember playing on GameCube was Wind Waker. But but that didn't come out at launch. So that's why I'm thinking I may have waited a little bit.
All right. Definitely a fun game. You can get not you personally, but people can get the 3DS version. They remade the first one. The sequel is on 3DS, Dark Moon. It's just a fun game. Luigi finally getting his shot at starring in a game that's not involved Mario. Mario is missing, but it's not called Mario was missing. The gameplay, especially for the GameCube, when Luigi's Mansion came out, really showed off the power of the GameCube and what we were going to expect from that very underrated system, in my opinion. And then Dark Moon kind of doubled up on that. Luigi's Mansion 3 looks really fun because obviously it's just a sequel. It's on the Switch, so it's going to be, the graphics are going to be better. But some of the game mechanics in it are pretty cool. Like if you're used to Luigi's Mansion, now there's a slam mode. There's you can scare the ghosts a little bit, kind of throw them off. But then they have this thing. So you have Luigi, and then they have Gooigi. Gooigi, yes. So if you play with a second player, Gooigi is just what he sounds like. He's just goo, shaped like Luigi, but like he can walk through spikes. He can go through, like fences and stuff like that.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so it really looks like it adds gameplay for the 2-player, but don't get him in water because if he goes in water, kind of like almost like a gummy bear, just kind of
disappear. He disappears.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, and according to I think it was according to Nintendo, but they're saying that this is like one of the funniest games they've ever created.
Oh, okay. I can see
that. So we should be expecting a lot of humor in that.
Yeah, they do have fun with it. Luigi's Mansion can have some fun with it. So
okay,
and they usually poke fun at themselves in the first party Nintendo games. Pokemon Sword and Shield, really nothing new out of that one. Just mention it again. And as far as and the other big first-party game that they showed, really not much news, but they showed Animal Crossing New Horizons.
Yes, which unfortunately is delayed. They also announced the delay, yeah.
And that's what's good about Nintendo. When there's a game that's going to be delayed, they're upfront about it. Like, look, we need more time on this, so bear with us. Not like another game we're going to mention a little later that kept getting delayed and delayed and delayed. So,
hey, you know what? It's coming out.
That is true. And that's like the only good news on that system that we're going to talk about. And then a little more mechanics about The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening.
Yes.
So apparently, and I'm just still getting used to the look of Link's Awakening. I don't know. It's still kind of throwing me off a little bit. I can't imagine the gameplay is going to be any different than the Game Boy version, which is still one of the best versions of the game. They did announce that the Color Dungeon will be in this version of Link's Awakening. If, for those of you who remember, Link's Awakening came out on the original Game Boy, and then they re-released it on the Game Boy Color. And when you played it on the Game Boy Color, Link's Awakening DX, you unlocked a special Color Dungeon, which I remember you played in your copy. That's only available on the Game Boy Color. So that's pretty cool. And it's funny they did this because we kind of talked about this a few episodes ago where you mentioned they should make like a Zelda Maker, like Super Mario Maker, but make like a Zelda Maker. And I know, like a little bit of a way they kind of have that, or they will have that in Link's Awakening.
Which is great because I think Zelda is a perfect game where you can create your own, imagine, like creating your own dungeons with and you can have like bosses that you can cherry pick and put them in there and everything like that. So you don't got to build them. But just the whole idea of like designing your own layout for a Zelda world would be kind of fun.
Yes. So, and they're doing that. Like you can create your own dungeon and then you can play in that dungeon. I guess you collect dungeon screens. And then when you get to that part, then you can kind of piece them all together if you want. It looked really cool. If you watch Nintendo Treehouses, they're like 6 hours long, but you can skip through them. You'll see some gameplay and some usage of that dungeon creator mode, which is pretty cool. All right, so that's really a lot on that part. Some of the other games they mentioned, we got a lot of the Resident Evil remakes. Resident Evil 5 and 6 is going to be coming to the Switch. What else we got? Dead by Daylight. That's going to be so I guess that'll be your third system you're going to have that game on.
No more. No more. Just one.
But now you can play it on the road.
Great. And I have travel. I have travel coming up too. So.
All right. So, and I think this is going to be multi-platform. Final Fantasy VIII remastered.
Yes,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and what's interesting about that is that everybody has been clamoring for Final Fantasy VIII. They've been wondering when they were going to, when they were going to re-release it. Because if you ever notice, whenever they re-release Final Fantasy games, they always skip over 8. And apparently, the issue was that the mechanics. There was something about the mechanics in the game that made it difficult to transfer it or remaster it for a system. I can't imagine what that is specifically. I honestly don't. I don't know if it was like the magic system in there, or if it was the card game system, or whatever it was. But there was some type of issue with it. But they finally decided to go back and make a proper remaster version of it. So now we've had now once that's complete, I think we've had a re-release of I think every single Final Fantasy game in the catalog.
I think so. Basically, now this one isn't as daunting as the other game that got a remake. This is just a remastered edition. So
correct. But it's still going to look like the original.
Yeah, but I mean, cleaned up a little more and probably a little bit faster and stuff like that. Which I didn't realize the Final Fantasy 7 remastered, like the one that came out on the Switch, it has like a speed mode. Like you can play it like 3 times faster than the normal version, which I kind of like. Because sometimes I find Final Fantasy goes a little slow.
Well, and Final Fantasy VII one of my favorite, if not my favorite RPG of all time. I mean, it took a good 60 to 70 hours to get through.
Oh boy. Speaking of Final Fantasy, I didn't realize this was part of the series, the Mana series. So what happens is they are remastering or remaking, I guess at this point. This is going to be the new terms, I think, remaster versus remake. So they're remaking Trials of Mana.
Oh.
The third game in the series. Yeah, this is going to be multi-platform, but I discovered it when they were talking about it on the Switch. So Trials of Mana, it's a sequel, or the third, of Secret of Mana, which is actually on the Super Nintendo Mini.
Correct.
Great role-playing game.
You mean the SNES Classic?
Yes, the Super Nintendo. And don't make me throw my phone into the water.
Oh, you know what? I'm recording video. That would be awesome.
You'll just see it flip. Yeah. So Trials of Mana getting this big remake on all the systems, which is really cool. But here's the really neat thing, and it's available right now. You can buy the collection of Mana, which is the original 3 games. I didn't realize this was the first in the series, but on Game Boy, it's Final Fantasy Adventure, which is funny that I actually own. Like, I bought it years ago. I'm like, oh, I'll try this. So I actually have that. Over in Japan, it would be called Mystic Quest. I think that came out on Super Nintendo as well. Final Fantasy Mystic Quest, yeah.
Yes, it did.
And then Secret of Mana is the sequel, and then Trials of Mana is the third. And those are going to be the 16-bit versions.
Very cool.
With Final Fantasy Adventure, the Game Boy game, so now we have that. We have Operation C in the Contra collection.
Yes.
And we have the 2 Castlevania Game Boy games in the Castlevania collection. I'm really loving how they're re-releasing Game Boy games. I know they're not purposely doing it, but it'd be really cool if they kept going in this direction. Because, again, there's a lot of games on Game Boy that people are going to miss out because they may not think it's a good game.
Right, and I think that the whole idea of being able to do digital downloads now, I mean, just allows you to be ripe with like anything in your catalog can get released. So, and Game Boy games, to your point, like for and we've talked about this a million times, like for somebody like me who never played handheld games because I could not handle the fact that the screen was so small, it would drive me crazy. Like being able to go back and play some of those games, especially some of the iconic ones, like what you're talking about, it's perfect. And I think, and the Switch is the perfect venue for them.
Yes. I agree with you on that one. So the collection of Mana, that's really cool. You get all those 3 games. Another game I want to mention real quick, not only is it based on a cool movie that's getting a pseudo-sequel on Netflix, but they made this tactics version of the game. The Dark Crystal Age of Resistance Tactics.
I know. I was very surprised when they announced that because, Netflix announced, that they're doing the prequel series, which I'm very excited about. And if you've never seen The Dark Crystal, I highly recommend you go and check out the film. It's dated. It is
I've
dated.
never seen The Dark Crystal.
Okay, you have to see it. The minute you see it, you're going to be like, okay, what is this? But you also have to think of when they filmed it.
Yeah.
Dated film, but great fantasy film. And then, obviously, we're getting the series. And now a game, and I'm very excited about the concept of the game.
Yeah, Tactics plays like Shining Force, plays like Final Fantasy Tactics. You move your character, they move theirs. Almost like a giant game of chess.
Basically.
But based on the Dark Crystal, that's a cool IP to use.
And and that's not the only IP. That's not the only Netflix IP that's getting a game on the Switch. I don't know if you have that on your list, but
Stranger Things 3.
Yeah, we're getting Stranger Things 3, the game, to go along with the new series or the new season.
You seen all the stuff coming out based on the Stranger Things. They got New Coke is back.
Yep.
McDonald's, I think, is not McDonald's. Burger King is doing like the upside down Whopper.
Yes, I saw that.
And not only that, but like all the old '80s packaging and everything like that. Mm-hmm. So probably that non-biodegradable styrofoam. That'd be awesome.
Yes. Yeah, it's a good time for the '80s right now.
Yeah, it really is. Because I'm dying for New Coke. Yeah, so Stranger Things, and that's a very 16-bit looking game. I never watched Stranger Things, but the game looks really cool.
You really should. It's a great show.
I've heard. And a couple more here, and we'll move on from Nintendo. So, actually, I was excited when I saw the announcement, and then I got kind of upset when I saw the gameplay. There's a new Contra game coming out, multi-platform, this one. Contra Rogue Corp, which is, I'm assuming, based off of Hardcore, which is the Contra game from Genesis. So I'm like, sweet, a brand new Genesis. They announced it brand new Contra. When they announced the Contra collection, I just dropped that day as well, which definitely pick it up. It is amazing, the Contra collection. But then I saw gameplay, and it's like almost like a hybrid side-scroller 3D type thing. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Again, I'll reserve judgment for actual gameplay, but it's not the Contra I was hoping for, but hopefully it'll be the Contra that I want.
Yeah, and I heard, and there was a lot of skepticism to it when they released all the information and they said it was going to be this kind of hybrid thing. But again,
weird.
Yeah, it's weird, but you know what? I mean, we've been proven wrong many, many times before.
True.
So to your point, I think reserving judgment is probably the best option right now until you actually get your hands on the game.
And you get to play as some sort of hybrid panda guy. I don't know.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that. I'm all in.
And then two more games. Finally, first, let's talk about this one a little bit. I think you may have some likes to play this. Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 got some more gameplay.
Yep.
Trailer of it and a season pass.
Yes, and I am extremely excited. I think this is the game that I'm looking forward to the most at the moment on the Switch.
Okay.
Well, yeah, because obviously been a huge Marvel fan since I was a kid. The Black Order is basically the Infinity Gauntlet story in game mode,
like the comic book version, maybe not the movie version.
Yeah, no, probably more the comic book version, and not even that. I mean, I think they're taking their liberties because you're going to see, you may see a lot of characters in there that weren't even in the comic book story, but still, just the whole idea of like, because the whole Infinity War story is hot right now in pop culture because of the last two Avengers movies, capitalizing on it with a story in a video game, absolutely perfect, great idea. I was actually surprised they never did a game based off the film, because you know how the movies always seem to have a video game attached to them?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And
I guess the reason why they didn't do that is because they were working on Ultimate Alliance 3 and another Marvel game we'll get to later.
Yep.
But between the announcements they made at E3, the trailer that dropped, I think, before E3 showing some of the X-Men that are going to be in it, and then a season pass, which of course is going to, I'm sure, going to unlock either more story, more characters, things like that.
Because you can buy the Game Pass now. In fact, I think it's gonna have Fantastic Four eventually.
Nice.
More X-Men, but it was like the X-Men logo from like the cartoon, which I guess is based on the comic book.
Yes.
So I can't remember what the third one was though. There was a third one.
Yeah.
But then there'll be, like you said, other stories, more stories. But yeah, it looks really fun.
Yeah. Oh, and before I forget, I know this isn't video game related, but since you brought up the X-Men cartoon, there is a rumor going around online that they may be bringing it back to Disney Plus.
That'd be interesting. The original or new, or like
no. They were talking about the original one, the one from the 90s. Okay. Yes. They were talking about actually not just bringing it back, but making a new episode.
Okay, so all right, so both.
Yeah. So exactly, I would welcome that wholeheartedly.
Wasn't like who's an original character in the cartoon that like they killed off episode 1?
Oh, Morph.
Oh, that's right.
And then but in typical X-Men fashion, he came back. So
there you go. And then finally, very much a teaser. All they said was it was in development, and this is probably the first direct sequel to this game since the first sequel of the game. We will be getting a sequel to Breath of the Wild.
Yes, and wow, I'll be honest with you, surprised. Completely surprised. No, I mean, I never expect a sequel.
Now, I was going to say, like, surprised that it's a direct sequel. I mean, obviously not surprised that they're doing another Zelda. You knew that was going to happen eventually anyway.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you're always going to make another Zelda game, but the last time we've ever gotten a quote-unquote sequel to a Zelda game was Majora's Mask.
What? Oh, okay. No, then there's more sequels than I thought. I was thinking Link's Awakening. Not Link's Awakening. Adventures of Link.
Adventures of Link. But, which kind of sort of was, but I never really connected it that way.
Yeah, and then now I think about it, the Zelda on 3DS, The Link Between Two Worlds, is kind of a sequel to Zelda Link to the Past. All right, never mind on the sequel thing. But
well, I feel like this is like what I mean is it's a sequel that is using the same exact world and game mechanics.
Yes.
So in other words, like Ocarina of Time, like Majora's Mask used the same world from Ocarina of Time. Now Breath of the Wild 2 is using the same world from Breath of the Wild. When you had Zelda, the original Zelda, and then 2 Adventures of Link, it was a different game design.
True.
So, yeah, so that's why I'm like, okay. I was like, and of course, I had no idea that was coming. So when the trailer dropped, I was like, oh, okay. I was like, I've already put 100 hours into the first one. Here we go again.
Exactly. Means I'm gonna have to stop playing that game.
Yes.
All right. So that's basically it from Nintendo. Again, there's gonna be a lot of news we may not mention here. These are just some of the highlights, some of the stuff to mention. But we're going to continue on here. We're going to move on to some of the next. All right, now I'm starting to get eaten alive here. I am outside. But, yeah, Nintendo, like I said, so far, strong showing for Nintendo. But we will see what the other 2 main competitors have to offer. All right, next up on the block is our favorite green system. Kind of green. I guess their logo is green. Xbox.
Yes, green is better than red rings. So
this is very true. Before we get into Xbox, and Xbox had a lot of news coming out. This I want to mention first because Xbox is doing it, Stadia is doing it, Sony has been doing it, and well, Xbox has been doing it as well. The push to cloud play. Basically, Microsoft, Sony, Google, they're really pushing to the point where they're looking for a subscription. You play your games based on the cloud. You don't have to download anything. You jump right in when you're ready.
Mm-hmm.
Just to mention real quick, again, Stadia, Google Stadia, the whole thing's based on the cloud. You have the Xbox Game Pass, and you have PlayStation Now, which even like for fun, just try the trials. Like a 1-week trial. Yeah. I got to admit, I tried the PlayStation one. And I played some like heavy graphic games like Arkham Knight, Batman Arkham Knight. And again, you could download if you want, but I streamed it. It wasn't anything different. It felt like it was downloaded. Granted, when you download it, it's a little better graphics. But this is the push that everyone's heading towards.
Yeah, and I think it's just one of those things where you don't have to worry about necessarily. They're trying to eliminate the whole idea of hardware, because if you can eliminate the whole idea of hardware, what happens then is we will just constantly have a cloud service, and then as they upgrade or update graphics and things like that, you never have to worry about hey, here's a new system that we have to physically make. It's just that, oh, look, we've just updated the data, and now we can offer 4K gaming, 8K gaming, and however high we go. Very soon we're going to be walking through our games in our homes.
Which technically you already are.
We're close to that, yes.
and not only that, but there's no storage issues, like running out of storage and stuff. So
no, it's unlimited. Again, it's absolutely unlimited.
I like it. It's and when I tried the PlayStation Now, I really did like it because it opens up also with a subscription base. You don't have to worry about buying $60 games all the time. They're right there. As long as you're subscribed. So it's got its pluses and its minuses. I get it.
Yeah, it's Skynet eventually, but
So let's talk about some of the games here on Xbox. Some of them are going to try and stick to exclusives to Xbox, and then there's a big news from Xbox we'll mention. But let's talk about this first. Gears of War 5 is coming out. All right, cool, great series, first-person shooter. They're actually making a Gears Pop video game based on the Pop vinyls, which I think is pretty funny for your mobile.
That could be fun.
But here's what's cool. Gears 5, now, if you subscribe to the Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, which is because they announced Xbox Game Pass for PC.
Mm-hmm.
So you can play like over 100 Xbox games on your PC for a monthly subscription. Now, for $15 a month, you can get the Game Pass on Xbox and the PC Game Pass as well at no additional charge.
Mm-hmm.
But if you get Gears 5, you will also get for free downloadable content of The Terminator Dark Fate, which I think is pretty cool.
That's a nice little plus.
Yeah, see Terminator and Gears 5. I think that's pretty nice.
That's very cool.
You know, it's fun to see a lot of these crossovers that are happening now.
Yeah, and you know what? I think that's just going to be more of the norm because I feel like it's a good way to promote a film these days. I mean, you know, it's like all of a sudden it's like take an iconic character from a film franchise and just throw him in. You know, if you're already through in Terminator, when are we getting Rambo? Yeah,
no, that's true. That may be soon, even though it had its own game already on Nintendo.
Although I was enjoying, there was a meme going around of Rambo Bright, which was Rainbow Bright. Rambo dressed up like Rainbow Bright. Yeah, you have to look for that.
I certainly will. Speaking of crossover, here's a pretty cool crossover. So Forza Horizon 4, Forza series, fantastic racing game, but they're getting a Lego crossover.
Yes.
Not a Lego game, but Lego's going to be in Forza, which I think is pretty fun.
I think it's awesome. Can you imagine driving like your souped up Ferrari or whatever the hell you're driving, and then all of a sudden you're getting passed by a Lego car?
Yeah. Oh, we got it. Come here. Hey. I think we may have a little bit of a guest here.
Oh, we do?
Delilah. Come here. Delilah. She's not listening to me, so it don't matter.
No, not like my cats that love the spotlight, huh?
All right, we'll try to get Delilah back here in a moment. Yeah, so jumping ahead. Forza Horizon 4 getting some Lego cars in there, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
This, I think, I'm surprised it took so long for this to hit a home console. Microsoft Flight Simulator.
Yeah. That game just kind of fell off the map, I think, after a while.
Due to certain situations that happened.
Well, for good, good reason. For good reason. So, I remember a friend of mine in high school was obsessed with that game, and I never understood why, because I tried it once, and I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, so I just charted a flight from New York to Los Angeles, and I'm supposed to sit here for 6 hours.
In real time.
Yeah, right. While it runs on autopilot until it's time for me to land. You know what? I'm good.
Yeah. So Microsoft Flight Simulator is coming back to Xbox One X. I'm assuming they fixed the crash sensors on that. And hopefully it will be a good game.
I hope so. It's definitely one that I was excited. I was excited to hear about it, but I was also at the same time like, yeah, but I'm not going to play it.
Yeah. Actually, all joking aside, they did fix that part of it.
I hope
Flight Simulator. No, they did. Like after, all right, after 9/11, they're like, yeah, you can't crash into buildings anymore in Flight Simulator. So, but it's cool to see it come back. So that's good. Also, they announced, not a game related, but gamer tag related. You're going to be able to use symbols in your gamer tag, which I think they're doing it more to allow for like localization of languages and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the way they were talking almost made it sound like you can put like emojis in your game tag too. I don't know. I'm not really sure on that part though. But that was pretty cool.
Well, a cute little ad to customize your name and to make it unique, or more importantly, to be able to tease certain words that you're probably not allowed to use.
Yeah, that is true too. Yeah. One of the funniest parts. Did you watch the Xbox press conference by chance?
I'll be perfectly honest with you. I had to read everything this year because it's been a very busy week.
No problem. So they announced Cyberpunk 2077, which is this huge big time game coming out on Xbox. I think it may be coming out on PlayStation as well.
Yep.
But what they announced for the first time at E3 is that Keanu Reeves is going to he's starring in it. He's one of the characters. And then all of a sudden Keanu comes out on stage, because Xbox was the only one that had, of the big three, that had a stage presentation.
Yes.
And I find it funny when these actors come on stage or directors come on stage, all they have to do is read from a teleprompter. Their job is to just spit out what they read.
Yep.
But they sometimes just can't get the hang of it. Now, don't get me wrong. Keanu he had a fun time. Like, he came out, he was like, you guys are awesome. This is amazing. But, like, he couldn't stick to the script. He kept getting distracted, which I find hysterical.
Well, I feel like that's also typical Keanu. I mean,
That's
like,
true.
yeah, apparently, like Keanu has now like gotten this reputation online of like he's like the saint of the internet or
Yeah,
something
he
like that.
really
It's like
is.
it's like everybody is in love with Keanu Reeves these days, and you know what? And it's
Well,
awesome. I go because he's this very laid back, chill guy, and he seems like just a normal person. He just so happens to be a famous actor, and I
you know,
think it's hard to find a guy grounded like that.
true. I mean, let's face facts. He's Neo. He's John Wick, and he's Ted Theodore Logan.
He is
So,
Ted
you
Theodore
know,
Logan, first and foremost. And he will be reprising said role in Bill and
yes,
Ted Face the Music.
cannot wait.
Very excited about that.
They also announced a new Star Wars game, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, which looks very interesting.
And
In the long,
very excited about that one, actually. It
yeah.
looks pretty damn good. Yeah.
Some of the biggest news from Xbox that we got is the new Xbox system that's going to be coming out.
Yeah, so Project Scarlet is official. They did, obviously at E3 they announced it. But of course, what I'm most interested in figuring out is, will this be the last physical console we see now that everything seems to be going to the cloud / Skynet? I'm going to call it Skynet because I know it's inevitable. Just because I want to say I just want to say I told you so when the machines take over before I get blown up. But yeah, with cloud-based gaming coming forward, this may be the last physical console we're going to see.
Yeah, absolutely, positively, probably. You're right. Google Stadia is doing it, as I just mentioned before. The PlayStation Now, Xbox Game Pass, PlayStation 5 also might be that if it comes out. So Project Scarlet, as you all remember, Xbox One X was Project Scorpion. So we'll see what they're going to call this one.
If you go by the names of their systems, it should be like the Xbox 893.467.
You know what? I'll put money on it. Xbox Pi.
You know what? That would be awesome. But I don't want it to say. I don't want to show the pi symbol. I want to see 3.14.
No. I'm talking PIE.
Oh.
So slated for holiday 2020. Project Scarlet is going to be which they say every time they announce a new system. It's going to be the most powerful Xbox ever made, as it should be. I don't know why they'd go backwards.
I would love it if they said that. We're actually going to make it a little bit weaker, but you'll enjoy it. We swear.
It's going to be 4 times more powerful than the Xbox One X, which is huge. 120 frames per second. They're gearing up for 8K, and I'm already seeing commercials for 8K televisions.
Yeah.
So, I'll buy mine when the 16K comes out, because then 8K will be cheap. The 4K will be dirt cheap.
I know. I still haven't bought a 4K.
Telling you, they're cheap and they're well worth it.
Oh, I know.
It's going to be an SSD drive, virtual RAM. They're going to be really pushing Project xCloud, which is their cross-platform gaming. Supposedly, that's going to be available on the Switch. We'll get to that when they announce more stuff for it. They kept saying Project Scarlet's going to be designed for gaming, and gaming, they kept pushing that, designed for gaming. I'm wondering if they're just going to focus on that and not worry about, Hulu, Netflix, having YouTube on it or something like that, which I think is silly because televisions have all of that.
Yeah, we're kind of I feel like we're kind of in a stage now with the way major studios are consolidating and they're all buying each other up and stuff like that. I don't know if it's going to become an issue where studios are just saying, we're not offering it through your consoles. We're only offering it through TVs or something like that. So it could be we may be entering a new age where it's like everybody's starting to pull back, and it's like, well, if you want to see our stuff, you have to watch it on your computer. You got to watch it on your TV. We're not going to offer it on a console, especially because if this is going to be the last generation of consoles, why invest in that stuff if eventually you're just going to be a cloud gaming service?
True, very true. So this Project Scarlet's going to look really cool. Of course, they announced a launch title for it, Halo Infinite.
Not surprising. I mean, Halo is their staple.
Yep, absolutely. So that's really they also talked about backwards capability, but I think some people read a little more into that than what was meant.
Yes.
What they're working on is that Project Scarlet will be backwards compatible with Xbox One games completely.
Mm-hmm.
They really didn't mention anything about 360 and original Xbox. So,
no, I was gonna say I think the only Xbox 360 and Xbox games you'll be able to play are the ones like that that are available for download.
Maybe, and that's they really didn't even announce that because again they have to they kind of talked about it, Like they have to trick the Xbox One into thinking it's a 360, and even then, it's per game. Like the publishers decide. That's why it's not fully backwards compatible. But nevertheless, the fact that it's backwards to the Xbox One is a start that they're working on. So that's cool.
I always felt one of the biggest mistakes that these companies made was when they stopped making them backwards compatible.
But again, then I go back to the Super Nintendo's not backwards compatible with the Nintendo.
Well, yeah, but those were cartridge-based systems.
I know, but
once we got to CD-based, it was fully capable because you just have to write the firmware.
Yeah, I hear you. And then of course, they also announced which you can use now on an Xbox One. The new Xbox Elite Wireless Controller Series 2, which is just like a high-end duty. My cousin actually has the Elite controller. A, it's heavy, but B, it's very comfortable. Even like when you put the buttons in the back and everything, it's pretty cool.
That's cool.
Yeah. So that's the big stuff from Xbox. I mean, there wasn't anything else that stood out that's kind of exclusive for Xbox. But what do you think overall of like the Xbox, from what you read, the Xbox announcements with this Project Scarlet and everything for this E3?
Yeah, so I have to say, like, of the three main systems, Microsoft has kind of fallen off the map for me, and I was hoping with Project Scarlet it would kind of bring itself back in, and I wasn't overly enthused by the list. Now, granted, the Xbox has always been like the games that always come out on the Xbox are not my kind of games. Like I'm not a Halo guy, I'm not a Gears of War guy. Like those are not that's not my bread and butter.
I hear you.
And I'm excited about Project Scarlet. I think it definitely has potential. It's always going to come down to games. What are the games on the system? I mean, as great as all our systems are with the other apps on it and everything like that, I'm a gamer at heart. I need games that are going to appeal to me. And right now, I'm excited about a new system, but I'm not excited yet because I haven't seen a game where it's like, ooh, I have to buy it for this. Okay. So I'm in a wait and see mode for Project Scarlet for sure.
All right. So we'll see. Let us know your thoughts about the Xbox E3 press conference. Of course, hit us up Facebook, Retro Gamers Podcast, and we're going to move on with our next system.
All right, Larry, and now we're getting to the third major, our third major company at E3, and we're going to talk a bit about Sony. But before we do that,
yes,
I have a little bit of a Sony story from E3 week. And so I thought I'd share that before we get into what Sony talked about, especially since, because Sony didn't really talk about a whole lot at E3 this year, but they purposely said they weren't going to.
Exactly. They just weren't there.
Yeah, exactly. So I just wanted to share a couple of stories. First off, Days of Play, which was going on during E3 week, was to me the best sale out of all of the sales from the three platforms. I thought they offered a lot of really solid stuff. Mm-hmm. I picked up a bunch of games, a couple of VR games. I picked up there was a Heavy Rain and Detroit Become Human 2-pack for like $12.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, for $12, I'm like, that's a no-brainer. I'm like, those are two really, really solid games. So, so I snagged those. But just overall, in general, like overall, I felt like Sony hit it out of the park with Days of Play, and I honestly think they did that because of the fact that they really didn't have a presence at E3, so they were kind of offering a good opportunity for gamers to kind of stock up in their library. Not to mention the fact the free games this month, Sonic Mania and Borderlands. Which again, I mean, two really solid games. But the one thing that I wanted to share is, and I know you were like, I may have already told you about this, but we've all talked about the unsuccessful venture Sony had making the PlayStation Classic.
Oh, and,
yes. Well, people come. Well, you know what I mean, though.
Unsuccessful.
It was unsuccessful in the fact of a lot of fans and gamers were complaining that it was. A lot of PAL versions, things were playing slower. It did not work out for them. And as a result, the sales for this thing plummeted in terms of price really, really quickly.
Tell me about it.
I know, because you had pre-ordered it for $100.
Full price, baby.
Yeah, I had the pre-order and I canceled it about a month out because when I saw the list of games, I'm like, I'm not too sure.
I'm even gonna... fair enough.
Yeah, and fair. I judged it on the games that were on it. I didn't judge it based on how it played. So, anyway, during E3 week, Amazon, Walmart, and I believe Best Buy
and the rest of the planet
dropped the price of the PlayStation Classic to $30.
Oh my God, really?
$30 for the PlayStation Classic.
How much percentage off is that?
That is 70% off.
Oh my God.
Yes. If it was $100 and they took 70 off, that's 70%.
I'm never good at math.
No, apparently not. So anyway, when I saw that it was $30, I'm like, maybe it's time for me to take the plunge and buy the PlayStation Classic. So I went on Amazon and I looked at it and I'm like, I was like, okay. I was like, for Final Fantasy VII, for Metal Gear Solid, I'm like, for Resident Evil Director's Cut, I'm like, you know what? If I bought it and I only played those 3 games, it's $10 a game. Not that bad. Plus I get the little mini console if I buy it. So I throw it in my cart and I'm like, okay, I'll buy it. And then I look at, and then I look and I'm like, I was like, what is this? I have the Amazon credit card and it gives you 5% back on all your purchases.
True.
So I look at it and I'm like, I was like, I have a credit. How much credit do I have? I have like over $20. Okay. So I'd like to say hello to my new PlayStation Classic
that you got.
That cost me $12.54.
Unbelievable.
So that is about 87.5% off.
Figures. Well, congratulations on adding that to your collection.
Yep. 20 games, $12. That's about 60 cents a game. I still think I may have overpaid slightly.
How dare you?
I do now have a PlayStation Classic.
It's very good. Well, you're going to quite enjoy it. And we're going to have to talk later because I have the Japanese one as well. And I have no idea how to play Devil Dice. So we're going to talk about that
I'll teach you how to play Devil Dice. I have to get my hands on the Japanese one just for Devil Dice. Mm-hmm.
Honestly. And there's a really good Gradius on there as well.
Ooh, okay, cool.
Enjoy a little PlayStation Classic because that's probably like the biggest news that came out of PlayStation.
That actually was like 70% off. That is the big news out of Sony because Sony was a bit quiet this year, and but you know what? They had announced it ahead of time. They said they weren't really going to have a at E3, which was understandable because they are doing similar to what Nintendo's doing. They're kind of putting. And Nintendo did have a big presence, don't get me wrong. I'm like, but Sony has decided that they're going to go all in with these monthly updates.
Play of State, I think, or State of Play. It's
State of Play. Yeah, State of Play. So Sony's State of Play.
Have one.
Well, they didn't have one this month because I think they had just done is this the first or second one that they just did?
Yeah, but still, it's E3. If you're going to do it, I get not being at E3.
Yeah.
Which they just weren't there again, period. But I mean, we'll see what happens. Maybe they got other things planned.
Yeah. It's possible. I mean, we may get the new State of Play may just update you on everything that's not at E3. But the big, to me, the biggest news coming out of Sony right now is obviously the PlayStation 5.
Yes.
Which they did announce at State of Play and not at E3. However, talking about the PlayStation 5, I mean, it looks like, again, maybe the last physical console we're going to get. And I'm sorry, just based off the first thing they said, it was a home run for me. Fully backwards compatible to the first PlayStation.
Wait, hold on. But again, I think people are reading into that. That's not, they said it's going to be backwards compatible with the PS4.
No. I heard it was going, no. I heard it was fully backwards compatible to the one.
I've heard both. I've heard PS4 only. I've heard maybe all the way back to the beginning to PS1. See, that's the thing. And that's why I think the biggest news out of E3 for Sony, again, even the fact that they weren't there, was the fact that they did not go into details about the PS5, like Xbox did with Project Scarlet. Like, yeah, all right, we already know a lot of the stats on the PS5 and things like that. But, even just no additional stats, no holiday 2020 release or 2021 release or whatever it's going to be. That, to me, is the biggest thing out of Sony, just not a peep about the PS5, where to put those rumors to bed even because, and again, and I get where you're coming from, where yes, there was news about it going backwards compatible all the way to the beginning, but again, I've then read no, it's only backwards for PS4.
Well,
so
they're gonna first off, they're gonna have to clarify that, right?
Exactly.
And the second thing is, I think because they already made the announcement at State of Play, there was no need for them to go to E3 to make anything additional, only because they had already given all the information away. So yes, Microsoft making their big splash at E3 was great, but in essence, Sony decided that their strategy was going to be, we'll get the leg up on Microsoft by announcing it before E3, since we knew Microsoft was announcing it at E3. That's at least my thought.
Fair enough. No, completely understandable. I figure also just even a point to just remind us about, not that we need reminding, but just mention the PS5. Just nothing. But
agreed.
Be that as it may, there was still a handful of good stuff. And like I said, we get in the PlayStation 3rd. A lot of games we've already mentioned are coming out multi-system. So the PS4 is getting its fair share of games. But to mention some of the exclusives, not exclusive, exclusives. First one that actually I just thought of now, I forgot about, in the vein of Night Trap, they're remaking Corpse Killer.
Yes, talk about random. I mean, that was just like a random announcement. And you know what? I'm in.
Oh, totally. It's a Sega CD game. I think it was Sega CD 32X even, maybe.
Yeah.
Limited run, those terrible people, in my opinion, legally speaking, at Limited Run are going to release it, physical copy. So I'll make sure to download it.
Which I'll pick up and get.
Well, unless someone virtually steals it out of your cart, because Limited Run is
which won't happen. That has not happened for me yet in the 2 games I bought.
But let's talk about the big stuff here. First, there was a game that they announced called Spiritfarer, which it looks like a very lighthearted game. It's almost like you live in this world where you're living on a boat, and then you run into these magical, mystical creatures. But as you go along, you build your boat almost into a city.
Yes.
So it's kind of like that. I wouldn't call it necessarily a sandbox game like some of these other games, but it looks pretty interesting. It looks like a fun game. That looked like it had a big hit to the PlayStation. Speaking of which, with Sandbox, I thought I heard something. Minecraft Dungeons is going to be coming out multi-platform, which is, what it is, Minecraft, but it's like, it almost plays like Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance or Diablo 3. Yes. I think it's pretty cool. So that's going to be good. And here's one for you. I don't know if it may already be out. I'm not 100% sure. But Beat Saber is getting its DLC, Imagine Dragons.
Yes. Imagine Dragons dropped last week. Okay. Yeah, dropped last week on June 10th. And
get it?
Yes, I have gotten it.
Awesome.
I've gotten it. I've played through. I think I've completed all of them on expert mode already. But that doesn't mean they're easy. And the expert plus mode is insane. Here's my thought on that. I was actually having a conversation with a friend of mine about this yesterday, because Beat Saber, at least on Sony, there are maybe, let's say, 30 songs, and now Imagine Dragons they released another 10, which is great. Yeah. But unfortunately, the issue that I'm having with it is that because there aren't a lot of songs available on Beat Saber, dropping 10 songs from the same artist isn't as exciting, because you're just playing through the same artist on that pack. And they don't have enough variety yet, in my opinion, on the system to warrant a large pack from one artist. Now, if they would have broken it up a little bit, the way that Rock Band used to do, because what Rock Band would do is like, here's a 3-pack of Imagine Dragons, and we're also releasing... here are 5 singles from 5 other artists, and then here's a separate album from another artist, where you get like a full 10 songs. I'm like, right now it's just like 10 whole. So I've got like 30 songs from artists I don't know, right? And then they're mostly like electronic,
like techno,
a lot of EDM stuff. And not that there's anything wrong with them. I'm enjoying the song. I'm enjoying the songs. They're very challenging, and some of them do get in your head. There's one that actually has a almost like an 8-bit beat to it, and it reminds like playing through it reminds me, for some odd reason, it reminds me of playing through Castlevania. I don't know why. Awesome. But then I have all these songs from artists I don't know, and then 10 Imagine Dragons songs. So I'm like begging for more variety, and they've already announced, and they've already said they've made a lot more licensing deals with other artists that will be dropping later.
Good.
I'm like, if I were them, I would just say, hey, I was like, mix them up when you drop them. It's great that you want to do a whole bunch from one artist. I was like, but if you give a variety in each pack, I think it would be more appealing.
Okay.
My
sounds good. Yeah, listen, you're the only one playing it between the two of us right now. So.
Well, you should play.
I want to. Other DLC, which I'm not 100% sure what it consists of, but Kingdom Hearts 3 is going to be getting some downloadable content to the PlayStation, I think, this winter.
Mm-hmm.
And then as far as games, there's really only, in my opinion, and maybe in yours too, Ant, definitely 2 big games on the PS4. 4 in general. There's a game called Gods and Monsters that was coming out that a lot of people kind of flipping over, which is kind of cool.
Yes.
That may also be on Xbox. I'm not 100% sure on that. Watch Dogs is getting a new game. Watch Dogs Legion, and apparently in this one, like any character you run into, I think can be like a nemesis or something like that.
It's a very interesting concept, and I think it's actually going to work out well for anybody who's a Watch Dogs fan.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to talk about these 2 games, and Ant, I know these are probably 2 games and 2 franchises that you really enjoy, so I'm going to let you pick which one you want to talk about first. I think you know which 2 I'm talking about.
I definitely know one of them that you're talking about, and I'm blanking on the other. So why don't let's do the other one first.
Oh, okay. Marvel's Avengers.
Yeah. Oh, right. Marvel's Avengers.
Marvel's
Avengers. I didn't bring it up before. Yeah. Okay. So
now this one, not based on the movie.
Not based on the movie.
Completely original story, completely original character design, which again I find hysterical that people are complaining about character design, because I think they're used to Chris Evans and Scarlett Johansson and RDJ. You know what I mean? Like, let's get into this, and I think you know a little more about it.
Yes.
So let us know about Marvel's Avengers from Square Enix.
Yes. Okay. So Square Enix has been working on this project for a really long time, and everybody's been wondering what it's about, because they said, "Oh, wait, they have the Marvel. What are they doing for Marvel?" Nobody knew. And it took them forever to finally, drop some information. And here we are. We get the trailer for Marvel's Avengers. Now, lot of things that I found that was that were humorous about it. First off, they turn around and they say that we didn't, they didn't want to emulate the films, right? They want to do something completely original story and all that stuff. Great. I was like, yet conveniently, the 5 main characters are 5 out of the 6 original Avengers from the film. So it's like, okay. I was like, well, you kind of did sort of copy the film. Let's just go there.
Are they like the top 5 or 6 Avengers in the comics? Like, who were the original Avengers? Yeah, let's get nerdy.
Okay, so let's get a little nerdy. So the original Avengers were Thor, Wasp, Iron Man.
Okay.
And then Ant-Man. Wait, was it Ant-Man? Yes, it was Ant-Man. Wait. Oh God! See now I'm questioning myself.
Let me ask you this: Who are the Avengers now?
Oh God! Forget about now. Forget about now.
Well, too many. We're jumping around. Is this even based on the comic, or is this just like a completely original, separate? Okay.
It seems like it's a completely original story.
Okay.
And of the original Avengers, because remember, Captain America was not an original Avenger. He showed up in Avengers number 4 when they thawed him out, when they found him in the ice and they thawed him out and all that stuff. Because you can survive like that, especially when you're Captain America.
Exactly.
However, obviously, just all you had to do was admit, we're trying to capitalize on the success of the films. We're using some of the main characters, and of course, the minute everybody saw it, their first complaint was, "Why is Hawkeye getting shafted again?"
Yeah, true. Yeah,
because he's the only one of the 6 from the first film that's obviously not being shown in the trailer, and everybody's like, "Calm down," because the storyline behind this game is that they're on the West Coast in San Francisco, setting up the West Coast Avengers. Now, the West Coast Avengers in the comic books was led by Hawkeye. He was the leader of the West Coast Avengers.
Stop complaining. We're going to give you your own separate team. Do us a favor. Set up a cross country.
Yeah, basically. We're like, you know what? We need people on the West Coast. Well, geez, who do we want to
go away?
Yeah, it's like, who do we want to banish over there? Oh, Hawkeye. Go. So anyway, so that's the West Coast Avengers. So now that's the story they're setting up here. So it's in San Francisco, setting up West Coast Avengers. Now, in terms of what they showed in the trailer, in terms of the likenesses, now there's a meme going around online which I thought was really funny because it was like Square Enix goes to the actors, and it's like, hey, we're making a Marvel's Avengers movie, and the actors are like, great, give us $5 million each, and you can use our likenesses, and then we get what we get. It's like, oh, never mind.
That's probably
yeah. So obviously everybody's complaining because the characters in the game don't look like the film, don't look like the actors. Okay. Bottom line, it's a video game separate from the film franchise. Agreed. Even though they're using the same characters. The reason why they're using the same characters is because those are the most recognizable characters thanks to the films.
Understandable.
Right.
Understandable.
Completely understandable. Now, in terms of the gameplay itself, this is the part where I'm not 100% sold on the game. Because it's because it's a hybrid. They're doing like a hybrid kind of thing where they're trying to tell it in a cinematic way, the same way we watch the films. Okay. And then you have the action, and then you have obviously the action elements in it where you're actually playing through it. So it's kind of it's going to be an interesting hybrid. And I don't know exactly if they're going the route of like a Until Dawn or Detroit Become Human.
Oh, I see what you're talking about. Okay.
Yeah, where in other words, there's a butterfly effect based on decisions you make during the cinematic moments. Not sure. So we'll see how that turns out. But they are saying that the game itself is kind of like Destiny 2, which is kind of that type of.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, so they're saying that like it's got a Destiny 2 feel to it. So I'm curious to see exactly how all this comes together. It wasn't 100% clear based on the presentation, but again, this was the first introduction of it.
Of course.
They obviously wanted to show how powerful and great it looked. And I'll be honest with you, it looked really impressive. Did I take a step back when I saw the characters and said, wait, they look kind of like the actors, but not even close? Yes. And I think maybe had they have made an attempt to make the characters look completely different from the actors, I think they probably would have been better off to just show we're giving you the film feel of the Avengers films with a completely original game. I think that probably would have been the best bet. However, it's not going to deter me, and I don't think it's going to deter a lot of people from playing the game if the game is awesome. Not at all. I was like, and then on top of that, they also announced that there will be, I don't know if it's a season pass that they're going to have. I'm assuming it is. There's your cat in the window.
Hey, there you are. What's up?
And that's it.
Cranky sometimes. Yeah, that's there you go, Samson.
Well, she wanted to hear about the Avengers.
He's already bored with our nonsense.
Yes, he is. So I don't think it's going to deter anybody. And I did think they announced there like a season pass where you're going to be able to download more, more missions and stuff like that.
But here's the thing they announced, which is cool. It's all free content.
Yes.
Apparently, there's no play to pay. The other big recurring theme was. Like a lot of these companies are no longer going with what they call pay to play or pay to win, meaning downloadable content or, pay this much money, you get your stats all up to speed and then you go and defeat the game. So, it's kind of old school. You go through the game. But with the DLC, which includes new characters, new settings, new locations, they say they already have this is like a multi-year process that they're going to have this game out for. And they're already planned that out for regular download. So I wouldn't call it a season pass as much as it's just here's updates. Let's call them updates.
Yeah, and there are a lot of games that do that right now. Like I play I play Dead by Daylight religiously at this point. And they're constantly they have every year they have a presentation that they do that's like 2 or 3 hours where they basically tell you here are all the updates coming to the game. And I think this is another way that games are going. Companies are trying to figure out instead of making 1,000 games, it's like based on one franchise. It's like, how do we make a core franchise game and just continually update it so you're just getting obviously a continuing story and continuing gameplay from the same game.
Yeah. All right. No, I can see that. Now, also, it's funny because now that you mention it, it's weird. When I saw the trailer, I'm like, all right, these are clearly not the characters from the movie. Because I kind of thought it was going to have a movie tie-in. But once I saw that, I'm like, all right, no movie tie-in, which is fine. But then, I don't know, then I'm like, all right, like in my head, I'm like you said, those are the 5 Avengers that everyone knows, that the general audience knows. I'm fine with that. But then I'm like, all right, now the rest of this is just a completely original story, original IP, if you will, original everything. But then as soon as they're capitalizing on the movie, then they announced, they had a little teaser for new stuff. And who is it? It's
Hank Pym.
Hank Pym, excuse me.
Hank Pym.
Yeah, Ant-Man. It's like, okay, never mind. They're going as much of the movie as possible. But nevertheless, look, at least I get the reason to try and pseudo tie it without really tying it to the movies.
Yeah.
But then you go off on your own. And again, the downloadable content, the free updates will probably be other stuff that we've never seen in the movies, of course.
Exactly. But again, I say go with the most recognizable characters from the film because they're more relatable to a general audience now.
And then with that being said, if even today, I mean, it's not you can pre-order it today, but the beta's not up yet. But you can be part of the Marvel's Avengers beta on PlayStation if you order the PS4 game today.
Yes.
Or now. So check that out. All right, so I'm looking forward to Marvel's Avengers. I think it comes out in April 2020.
I believe that is correct, yes.
April or May, so we got about a year. And then finally, for PlayStation, the big one, I know Anthony's been waiting for a long time. The big remake, Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Yes. And, they originally announced this back in 2015. So 2015. So this is literally will be 5 years in the making because the drop date is March 3rd, 2020. Yep. So this is 5-year development. And to be honest with you, with a game of this magnitude, I can understand why it's taking so long to make because, like I said, this game was a massive undertaking even on PlayStation. I mean, it was 3 discs if I remember correctly.
Maybe 4? No, 4.
No, 4. Final Fantasy VIII was 4.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
but Final Fantasy VII was 3 discs. I actually still own the original copy I bought in 1997.
There you go.
That was a game I was never letting go of. I hung on to it for dear life. But the gameplay itself, like the game is phenomenal. Everybody talks about how Final Fantasy VII is arguably the best one in the series. It's also the most mainstream one. You have a lot of players who will own, like literally will say, like, which Final Fantasy games have you played? Well, I've played 7. 7 seems to be the one that most people say that if there was only one Final Fantasy they played, it's this one. And to be honest with you, it's partially responsible for the success of the PlayStation. It's got to be Yeah, it's got to be one of the top games, if not the top game on this original Sony PlayStation. Now, the trailer that they dropped was, I think, stunning was an understatement for me. And granted, I'm biased. I'm totally biased for this game. There's no question about it. But just seeing it in like the full HD look, I mean, it looks absolutely beautiful. The voice acting, which obviously is new to it because in the beginning, in the original one, it's all text-based. So the voice acting, fantastic. The cinematics look great. The characters look really good. And more importantly, the game mechanics. They've actually taken a bit of a risk here because in the original one, it was turn-based fighting, right? Mm-hmm. They've introduced a new gameplay mechanics in terms of battling. Okay. Which is stepping away from the original. So you can, I think and I'm not 100% sure how it works, but I think what happens is you play your battles in real time with melee attacks.
Okay.
So you can sit there and swing your sword.
Hearts.
Yeah, like Kingdom Hearts. You basically can swing all you want, and then you still have a bar that's building underneath you. And then when that bar is full, then you're allowed to access your materia, which I think allows you to use your magic.
All right. Well,
so it's a bit.
I can see that.
Yeah, so they're doing a bit of a hybrid with it, and I'm really curious to do. Like, I would love to do a hands-on demo to see it. People who have played it said it's a really interesting take, and we'll see. Ultimately, we'll see what comes out. But everything that I've seen on it has been nothing short of fantastic. And that trailer to me was probably the best trailer unveiled at E3.
Okay,
and that,
fair
to
enough.
me, that trumps Breath of the Wild 2, which is saying a lot.
Yeah, that does say a lot.
Yeah.
Even I'm like, wow, this Final Fantasy VII game looks fantastic. March 3rd, 2020. Check it out. I don't even know if it's on pre-order yet, but I'm sure it will be soon. And I may wait. I was going to get Final Fantasy VII on Switch, but I think I'll just wait for the remake. Go big or go home, right?
Yeah, so, no, I think so. Well, and you have it on your classic, so you can just play. You can play it on there, unless you want to play it remotely.
Also true.
Yeah. So, and that's the cool thing about the Switch. It's like even if you have the game at home, being able to take it with you. Like for me, when I travel, it's like I need games with me. So the Switch is perfect for me.
It's funny. When I'm looking at this with Project Scarlet, the PS5, Nintendo Switch, look, don't get me wrong. I'm sure I'll be eventually getting all these systems. But in my head, I'm like, if I had to choose just one, like if I had to get rid of like 2 systems and keep only one, without batting an eye, I would say Switch. I would keep the Switch.
Yeah, see,
it's just is what it is.
Yeah, see, and right now I'm kind of torn between the Switch and the Sony PlayStation because, VR is becoming a big thing for me. So.
That very true, very true.
So, and I'm sorry, nobody can force me to buy the Nintendo Labo VR. I'm sorry, it just doesn't.
Fun. It's like there is no game right now that is a full game. It all is just goofiness, something for the kids to put together or a 39-year-old to put together, and it's just kind of a cool thing. It's
I get it. I get it. It just doesn't look appealing to me at all. That's
because it's nothing compared to the PlayStation VR. So
exactly,
but it wasn't meant to be. So.
Yes.
All right. Nintendo, Microsoft, Sony. How would you rate them?
Well, I mean, just based off if I'm being honest, and based off of E3 presentation only.
Yes.
E3 presentation only. They go in the order you listed. I think Nintendo, Microsoft, Sony, in that order.
Agreed.
Now, if I had to put them in my own personal order, I would probably go with Sony, Nintendo, Microsoft, and that's only because the 2 games that Sony announced are the 2 games that I'm clamoring for the most. Okay. Nintendo's got 2 really solid ones in Breath of the Wild 2 and in Ultimate Alliance. And those are probably those are the 4 games coming out of E3 that I'm most excited about. Okay. But Sony's definitely got the edge for me, but again, mostly because I've been dying for this Final Fantasy VII game ever since they announced it, and I was not disappointed when I saw that trailer.
Final Fantasy VII, I think, is the time to get a 4K television.
I will probably have a 4K television before that comes out, but yes, no, I will.
Awesome.
I will go 50K if I have to.
All right, so let us know at the Facebook page, on Instagram, again, both Retro Gamers Podcast. Who you thought won E3, and then we're going to start to wrap this up. We got a little bit of third-party news, if you will, and then we'll take it from there. We'll be right back. And we're back. All right. So we're just going to wrap up some stuff here. What I like to call the third-party news from E3.
Third-party news is very important.
I thought this was some cool stuff. All right, let's touch on it real. Actually, you know what? I'm going to save that for last. I know I got the list. Anthony does. I'm going to save that for last. Let's talk about Arcade 1-Up. They had a lot of good news.
Holy cow! Out. Yeah, what a surprise though from them. I mean, the arcade machines are very impressive, and the ones they've already come out with, because they come out with Pac-Man, Asteroids, Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter,
Final Fight, stuff like
Final Fight. Like they've come out with such great arcades. And to be honest with you, if I had a room to put them in, I'd buy pretty much all of them.
Right, exactly. I agree with you. I was going to take my kitchen out and just line them up with Arcade 1-Ups.
Yeah, I was actually thinking that I don't really need a couch. So, although it is one of my cat's beds, so.
Well, they'll sleep on the arcade cabinet.
That's very true too. But yeah, if I had the room, I would buy a whole bunch of these things. However, the ones that they announced at E3, I gotta tell you, I now the temptation is at like an all-time high.
Honestly. Yeah. All right. So first, they started the week with 2 big announcements. First, a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles arcade cabinet, which
4-player.
Yes, you beat me to it. And which 2 games are they in?
It is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, if I remember correctly.
Well, we know it as Turtles 2, the arcade game, but the original 1989 arcade game.
The original 1989 arcade game, and then Turtles in Time.
Yeah, which was another fantastic arcade game. 2 top-notch games. And then they announced the Marvel cabinet, which, I'm going to be honest with you, I thought had the arcade game I was thinking of, but I guess that wasn't it.
I was disappointed it didn't.
But it has Marvel superheroes, X-Men, Children of the Atom, and the Punisher.
Yes, and the Punisher. It's interesting. The Punisher game, and there was another game. There was a Spider-Man game that was like a 4-player.
Yeah.
those games aren't as well known. So it was interesting to see the Punisher show up. I have a feeling that wound up on there because they couldn't get the rights to a certain other game.
Yeah, probably. But I thought Children of the Atom was. I was like, oh my god. And then I looked into it, I'm like, oh, that's just another fighter.
No, it's just another fighter.
Not just another fighter. It's a great game.
Yep.
Did you see the Thanos-sized Marvel cabinet at E3?
Yes, I did.
It was a 16-foot, fully workable arcade cabinet they had at E3 of the Marvel one. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, that was outstanding.
So you thought that was the only two? Like, okay, that's good enough.
Yes.
But no, then they announced 2 cocktail tables.
Yes.
Which I love those. A good old-fashioned cocktail table arcade. A Namco and a Capcom. All right, let me get ready to announce these. So, Namco. Well, that one, not a lot to say. 8 Pac-Man games, Galaga, and Dig Dug.
Yeah, I have a feeling you'll be buying that one.
Now, they didn't go into detail which 8 Pac-Man, so I listed 7 of them, what I think they are. So, Pac-Man, these are what my guess. Pac-Man, Ms. Pac-Man, Baby Pac-Man, somehow, because that was a hybrid pinball game.
Yep.
Pac-Mania, Super Pac-Man, Pac-Attack, and Pac-Land. That's not official. That's what I think.
Yeah, I wonder what would be the other one.
I couldn't even think of an 8th one.
Yeah.
All right. Let me announce the Capcom one. There's 12 games. Street Fighter, Street Fighter 2, Street Fighter 2 Championship Edition, Street Fighter 2 Turbo, Super Street Fighter 2 New Challenger, Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, Darkstalkers, Final Fight, 1944, Ghosts and Goblins, almost did it in one breath, Strider and Commando. Let me go back. Ghouls and Ghosts.
Yes.
Almost got that in one shot. 1944 Loop Master is part of that. That is a lot of Street Fighter.
That is a lot of Street Fighter. And I don't know about playing Street Fighter on a cocktail table.
Here's the thing. It's the first ever split-screen Street Fighter game.
Oh, yeah, because you're on opposite sides.
Exactly. So I think that's pretty cool. All right, so you got, and those are, now these usually retail for $400. The cocktail tables will be $500. So you're like, again, amazing news. We don't need anything else from Arcade 1-Up. But they're like, nope, hold my beer. Because we got one more arcade cabinet to show. And I know who's going to be buying this one. They announced a Star Wars arcade cabinet. Star Wars arcade, yeah.
Yeah, and these are the original Star Wars trilogy games.
It's got the, like the fighter jet control, whatever you want to call them. Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi.
Wow, and like that was the one that shocked me because I sat there and I'm like, oh no, there goes my money.
Of all the licenses, that's like probably the toughest one to get, and they got it.
Yeah, and the fact that they got it, and not only that, but the cabinet looks beautiful.
Yep.
And not only that, it has its own riser that you can buy.
Yeah, they're starting to do that too.
Star Wars themed riser.
Turtles had one, and they're also, if you don't want to buy, because the arcade cabinets are like 3/4 of the size of a regular cabinet. So it's shorter, but if you want, you can buy like a bar stool, like an Arcade 1-Up bar stool, and they're making custom ones too, like per arcade or just a Arcade 1-Up one. All right, I think it's going to rain here a little bit, so let's get ready to wrap this up for me.
All right.
All right, so Arcade 1-Up, big hit on that. Hyperkin and Polymega, they definitely showed up. They both showed up with light guns.
Yes.
I think the Hyperkin, though, was the only one that was being demoed.
Okay. But just the fact that light guns for your current, flats, I want to say flat screen, but we're way beyond flat screen. But for today's television,
LCDs.
LCDs, you can't play your original shooter games with a gun because it just doesn't work. Because
it had to be it was just the way that the old conventional televisions were, what they call those? CRT screens.
Yes.
It looks like with Hyperkin, it's like an adapter. Like, remember the adapters, like to play a Famicom game on an NES, like those old school adapters? It looks like there's going to be an adapter that you put between the cartridge and the system. And I heard like it works. There's like a white border around the screen, and that's how the gun would recognize where you're pointing. But who cares? Because nevertheless, it's still an amazing concept to do. So that was big as far as the light guns with the two of them. Hyperkin announced they will be releasing that will work on original console TurboGrafx 16 controllers.
Yes.
All right. They also announced an S wheel, which is a driving wheel for the Xbox One.
Mm-hmm.
Both Hyperkin and Retrobit, which is another wonderful company that's putting out some controllers, putting out N64 controllers.
Yeah, which is great because we need those.
Yeah, which I never had a problem with the original N64 controller, but I guess enough people did because they swap out the analog to go where the D-pad was.
Yes.
So I don't know. Anyway. What else? Retrobit is putting out. Remember the old NES Turbo Max controller?
Yeah,
that little one with the disc.
I hated that controller.
Well, Retrobit's putting out a new one. So,
why?
And Retrobit showed prototypes of a Dreamcast controller and an N64 controller that's shaped more like a Super Nintendo controller.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's very just concept. Very interesting.
Okay.
Bounce back to Hyperkin. They're releasing what's called the Competitor, which the only way I can describe it is a PlayStation-like controller for the Xbox.
Oh, okay, cool.
So that's pretty cool.
Larry,
oh man,
Larry, you got a little too excited about Hyperkin there. Did you faint?
I did. I had something happened. So that's why I wish I had wireless headphones.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Where did I leave off at? I don't remember.
I don't know. I just started laughing.
I was getting ready to wrap things up here with that. Retrobit putting out a bunch of Genesis controllers.
Yeah.
Actually, I just discovered they have an 8-button Genesis controller. It looks like the 6-button Genesis, but with 2 shoulder buttons.
Okay.
That actually works on the Switch.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, that was pretty interesting.
I like that.
Yep. And then 2 more pieces of news, one of which is Intellivision was at E3, showing off the official look of the Amigo.
Mm-hmm.
Or Amico.
Amigo or Amico?
Amico. Let's get this right. Yeah. Amico. Might as well call it Amigo at this point.
I would like them to explain what that means.
They didn't say. They went into a lot of definition as to how the logo looks, but I don't know where they came up with Amico, but they announced the system, which again is going to be download only, but it's also a family-friendly system. They announced really it's E for everyone is as high as they're going to go with the ratings. The games are going to be relatively priced. The system is going to be under $200, and all the games on it are going to be exclusive for the Amico. So,
yep.
And they announced, I
was going to say, do we know if there's any third party involved?
Well, Earthworm Jim's going to be on it.
Okay, so that's
a brand new Earthworm Jim. Yep.
Yes.
They did have 22 games playable, but like the first bunch are going to be like old Amico games, old television games. Yeah.
Okay.
So, but there's going to be 5 different colors for the system that you can get: metallic pearl, obsidian black, GTO red, galaxy purple, and the one I want, vintage wood grain.
Vintage wood grain, yeah. I knew you would go with that one. Me personally, obsidian black is the way to go.
And of course, that's basically white, black, red, purple, and wood.
And wood.
Yeah. And then finally, and this one came out of nowhere. It was like the last night of E3.
Yes, it was.
And of all places, Konami was the one that dropped it.
I know, which was interesting.
We are getting another mini, and this time it is an official TurboGrafx 16 mini.
Yeah, and this one's got me really excited because TurboGrafx 16 had so many solid games. It was a short-lived system, unfortunately. I think they kind of buried themselves with the when they tried going CD. It just didn't work for them. I don't know exactly.
I knew one person I knew who had the system.
Well, that's what I mean. Well, I just don't think they were able to compete with Nintendo and Sega at the time. It just wasn't to be. But that didn't stop it from being a good system with some solid games.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Absolutely. So, it's going to be your typical, like all the other minis, it's going to be preload. They haven't announced how many games in total.
No,
they only announced a handful, like 5 or 6.
Yep.
Which I'm looking forward to. Ant, let us know what those games are.
Yeah, let's go through the list. Okay. So, and obviously the North American and the Japanese versions are going to have different games.
Of course.
And they've announced 6 for each one. Now, for the North American version, we're getting Alien Crush.
Nice.
Dungeon Explorer.
Classic.
New Adventure Island.
Ooh, I like it.
Yep. Ninja Spirit.
That's a good one.
R-Type.
Absolute classic. I got info about R-Type in a moment.
Yep, and then Wise Book 1 and 2.
Ease.
Wise.
Ease, I think it's pronounced.
I like Wise.
But
I like to read it the way I see it, so I'm calling it Wise. And you know what? Alphabetically on the list, it's Wise.
Fair enough. All classics. Actually, funny story with R-Type. There was just a Kickstarter that ended. The original group that made R-Type Final on PS2 did a Kickstarter for R-Type Final 2. So they're making a sequel to that. So I'm in on that Kickstarter.
Very cool.
Won't be till holiday next year, but I'm looking forward to that. Now, how different is the Japanese lineup?
The Japanese lineup is actually very different. They've only got 2 of the same games.
Really? Usually it's only a handful of different. But
right.
What did they announce?
Well, so far, on the Japanese version, that is the same one on the North America. Dungeon Explorer and East, Book 1 and 2,
all right,
are going to be on both North American and Japanese. Now, the ones on the Japanese version that are not on the North American version are, and I'm going to go out of order, Superstar Soldier, which I don't know.
Ooh, that's a vertical scroller. That's a good one.
Oh, okay, cool. The Kung Fu, not Kung Fu.
Kung Fu. Okay. The definitive Kung Fu game.
Right, exactly. There are no other Kung Fu games. Just this one. And then the 2 that I'm more excited about that it's probably going to push me to get the Japanese one. Bonk's Adventure.
Oh, wow. Okay. Hold on. Before you move on.
Okay.
Bonk's, you know what I'm starting to think? I'm thinking, no, they got to have Bonk's Adventure on the North American one. All right, anyway, move on.
But they haven't announced it. I mean, no, it's possible they may announce it later. We don't know. Exactly. But right now, it's just on the Japanese one. And then the more important one, Castlevania Rondo of Blood.
There you go. This is the one that constantly people are looking for. Like this version. Remember, we got a version of Super Nintendo called Castlevania Dracula X. Yep. But it is different enough from the TurboGrafx version. Now, actually, I'm pretty sure that was a PC Engine CD game.
That is correct. So Castlevania, so Rondo of Blood and East were originally released on the TurboGrafx CD.
All right, cool. So we're going to get some TurboGrafx CD stuff on there.
Exactly. Now, that's all they've announced so far, 6 for each. Now, what's interesting about it is I am curious, since the Sega Classic that's coming out now has released 42 games on the list, if the TurboGrafx Mini will try and compete with that, because we've gotten, the NES Classic set the precedent at 30, but then the SNES dropped to 20.
Well, that was just size.
Yeah, I get it size-wise because which I get. But then we got the Sony PlayStation Classic, which also had 20. Then we wound up with the Commodore 64, which had conveniently 64, which was great. So I'm wondering where TurboGrafx is going to fall in this. I have a feeling that we're going to get more.
Throw the entire library on there.
I would be very happy with the entire library because let's face it, you could probably fit the entire library of the TurboGrafx games on a decent.
Well, no, not if they're going to release CD games on there as well. So,
yeah, but even so let me be even if I'm being generous and I say an 8 gigabyte drive, that's not that expensive.
That's probably
drive.
A lot, yeah.
Yeah.
Now they are, depending on where you are, you're going to get a different because there were different versions of it. You got the PC Engine, which is kind of a smaller version of the system. In Japan, we got what we know as a TurboGrafx 16, and in Europe, they got a slightly different version as well. So it's going to be 3 different versions of this system.
One of them is the CD version.
Yeah, that's Japanese version. Yeah. And I'm wondering because, which I read recently with the Genesis Mini, you have your North American list, you have your Japanese games, which are a good number difference, but then there's an Asian release, for that kind of market there, that has 3 or 4 different games that's exclusive to itself.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I forgot what games they are, but time will tell. They just announced it, and like you said, Ant, a lot of my friends who really never got into the minis, they're talking about the TurboGrafx.
Yeah, because it's one of those systems where it's kind of again, and granted, when we were growing up, I'm sure it was the kind of thing where it's our parents would only get us one system.
Of course, yeah.
So, we wound up with the Nintendos and the Segas, whereas very few people wound up with the Turbos. So, for a lot of people, it's an opportunity to play the TurboGrafx 16 games for the first time.
Yes, exactly.
And that's appealing in and of itself.
No price range, no date announced yet, anything like that.
Yet.
But news will come about, and with that is basically our E3 special. A lot of stuff.
Yeah, no, there was a lot to it. I feel like there was more going on this year, surprisingly, than it was last year, even though Sony didn't have a solid presence. But I think that's also because of third party.
True. I think this is one of the better E3s in the last few years, in my opinion, as far as news. And at this point, a lot of it's going to be wait and see. Now everything is announced, when everything's going to start getting released, and there goes our money.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I'm already opening up another credit card as we speak. Just for it.
All right, folks. So with that, again, that's our E3 special. We'll be back to our regular programming next week.
Yes.
And this was a good one. And I think that will be it. What is it? Like I said, I think it's about to rain.
It looks like it's about to rain. You should do these from Brooklyn more often. It's a nice setting.
I should. Well, nothing wrong with my little background back at home.
No, not at all. I'm just saying it's a nice little different setting. It's outdoor. No, he's not back there. He got tired about 30 seconds after we showed up. He's like, whatever, this is it. My cat's sleeping. It's time for me to take a nap. It's already 9 a.m.
Exactly. So with that, we are out of here, folks. We will catch you right here next week on the Retro Gamers Podcast.